Okay, welcome everyone. Just here to talk about the TPS situation. I've realized that the TPS situation is a lot bigger than even I thought before. It's the gift that keeps on giving. The last thing I did to my bike, my tune, was to modify that first 0% column in the map. So that was this column here, not zero there, but this one here. So that was this column. It wasn't being updated. When I applied that to the bike, I got my fuel economy back. So I'm not running super rich, and I gained about 15 kilometers before the light came on, which, yeah, to me was, I shouldn't have lost it in the first place. So to me, that tells me a couple of things. One, Woolich claimed that this is not actually read by the ECU. Well, it is. Um, but it says, yeah, you can't really trust their support people because they're support people. I think to some degree in the older bikes, maybe not. But nowadays, the modern bikes, it's as easy as that. You change these values, you see if your fuel economy changes, and then you know if it reads it or not. Anyway, so yes, updated that column. My fuel economy changed significantly, and yeah, much happier. Now, getting back to the electronic throttle valve corrections in the data viewer and the miscalculation there where Woolich is using the wrong formula, one of the consequences of that was it was putting, say, uh, things a number of cells out. So stuff that would be in these cells here was being put in the 0% one. So you would have a value here of, say, look, we've got 1316 would end up over here, or at least the values that we use to tune that to 1316 would end up in here, which would make this column here very rich, and so on. So this one would be richer, this one would be richer, this one would be richer, until it managed to sort itself out. And you're actually getting up into this area here. So all of these higher values that are here would end up being put into these previous cells that we know the ECU is reading. And that's why people's fuel economy is so bad, because their fuel is so rich, which is screwing up their AFR values. And yeah, really, it speaks quite poorly of the tuning industry that the first person to pull this up is me. Anyway, how do you guys fix it? And I know I've got my program on GitHub and that people can just download, but I thought, nah, I've got to do something different and I've got to make it easier. And yeah, I have. So it's divineentanglement.com. Now, my wife at one point uh, wanted to make bow ties, and we thought, well, what's a really cool name for a bow tie shop? Because she can stitch and stuff like that. So we came up with Divine Entanglement. Yeah, we never actually did the bow tie thing, but we kept the domain. So it's handy having your own domain for things. So anyway, if you go there and you go to the Woolwich, you have this, and fingers crossed, the basics are there. So at the moment, it's set up for the MT09, and we know that the Woolich MT09 calculation for ETV uses a base value of 38 and a linearity value of 166. So that's taking the internal sensor values that it sees in the file for the maximum minimum, and that is from this TPS that has recently been replaced in everything. But presumably the TPS sensor on previous models, or the one that they originally decoded, probably an R1 or something like that, had completely different maximum and minimum settings, different calibration settings, and they completely, well, they didn't take into account that it differs. So anyway, that's the formula they use. What I've done is these are the base values, the lowest I've observed. Now I've observed that the linearity is consistent. So from 0 to 100%, 0% to 100%, uh, from the raw values, it's that. And then pre TPS replacement, I had a base of 32, although technically now, reviewing what I did in the past, it was really 33. Now I have one of 35, so I'm just putting that in there as a default. But what you can do is you can come in and you can open the files. So we have here 3 files that I've got for testing, and it's going in, it's scanning them, okay, and it's calculated, it's looked at it and it said what's the lowest ETV, raw ETV value that yeah, sorry, I've got an annoying cat. What's the raw ETV value that it found in the file, the lowest one? And in this case it was 33. Now it looks for not the lowest one, but the lowest one with a RPM value, and that will typically be at ignition. So when you hit that ignition button and it goes to start up, that's the value we want. The next one is the value, the linearity value from the minimum to the maximum. And so what we find here was when it processed all these packets, so it's processed the file, that was the file size. So that's the number of bytes processed, the number of packets, 83,000 data records. I mean, do you get 83,000 data records from a dyno run? No. Anyway, so the minimum it found was that, the maximum it found was that. We know that the maximum can go up around 200, I think over 200. From an 8-bit sensor, it's 0 to 255. So we know that there's headroom at the top and at the bottom. Now, so in this situation, it's red. You can't actually export, fingers crossed. Oops, that should be grayed out because it's not there yet. It should actually say, yep, they're not accepted. So you have to actually accept these values before it will do it. So I want to accept this one, but I don't want to accept this one. So I want to revert to what we had before, and then I want to accept that, and now I can export that. So I can go to, where's it trying to do it? Desktop. And so I can say that was the 177 AT. And there we go. I've got my downloaded file. So if I come to the data viewer and I look at the, let's see, all these test files. So I look at this one. Okay. And yeah, these ones here, basically that's showing like a ETV of 13.3 peaked on there. But if I go to the other one, then, or did I open the right one? Yes. And I come to here, I'm looking at a peak of like 15.7, 15.1. I could zoom in more, right? So that's raised it up high enough that when it actually gets loaded in, it will get calculated back into the correct cell. So yeah, I'm telling it that it's 15, or giving it the value that would translate to 15, so that yeah, it comes into the right spot. Well, it's actually loaded in, so it is 15.7. All right, that's where it should be based upon the raw values for that peak. So it was obvious I was playing around with it while I develop it. This is there for everyone to use. Now I will cover, I'll close that and I'll come back to this. Now if we open another file and we open this much bigger one, right, and we let it do its processing, you can see that it's maxed out and it's minned. All right, and so when it gets all the way through it, there's a lot of data in this actually. Yeah, so I can just straight away go and accept that and accept that. Now it's 1.7, sorry, 1.77. That's probably correct. At least the 1.77 to the 1.78 is not incorrect. So yeah, as long as you know you've got 100% throttle in there, you actually hit it, then go for it. Just accept it and export for Autotune. And what was that? It was the 179 AT. So Autotune file, and there we go. And yeah, it runs, there's no server side to this, it's just completely in your browser. And yeah, you can see I've still got the Angular logo in there. So yeah, pretty easy to knock up. And there you go. So yeah, now everyone can do it, and you can do it. And here's the important thing. So with the with this, you get to choose your bass and you get to choose your linearity. All right, and you can do it at a glance. So, or you can do it without issue. So the problem we had with the C sharp Windows application was that it was hard coded. It was hard coded to my values, and that's not really very useful to everyone. And the way I treated that was, if you cared, then you would download and use it. Whereas, and I considered that most people probably wouldn't care, but the issues that this TPS sensor recall have shown up, uh, they kind of indicate that this is something you should care about. You should be making sure that your data is going into the correct cells in this table. So there it is. The link will be in the description. Hopefully this will help people out, and it will certainly give people a lot more accurate tunes. Now, the downside of it is that we know potentially the TPS value, depending upon how miscalibrated it might actually be reading out of the wrong column. Because definitely seeing a lot of tuners in their tunes, people are saying, it's just sluggish trying to get going and stuff like that. Now, that could be either because it's too lean, because they're reading off, because it was calibrated wrong and it's trying to read sort of below the zero table. And so these values are actually, what the ECU is getting is lower than that, although I don't know how it could do that. Or it could be that it's now reading from higher columns, or it could just be that it's so rich now down here that you know the problems could be compounding. So it may have been calibrated to the point that it's actually reading from a higher column, but because they haven't been doing their ETV correction, because well, no one can do it until I did this, all of the tuning values for here have ended up in these lower cells, and now it's just excessively rich and it's just not able to generate power. It's almost like it's flooded. So we'll see how this goes, and hopefully this is useful to people. Yeah, there's going to be some glitches, but most of those are going to be cosmetic. Like the CSV export stuff is just not there. It's going to ask you to download a dodgy .bin test file that doesn't actually do anything. It's just a bit of test data. But yeah, the this export process works, and it's there for everyone to use, and it covers the most important thing in the whole tuning process at the moment for these MTs. Well, I expect this will work for the XSR, work for the Gen 3. I guaranteed it's going to be an issue with the Gen 4. And yeah, another thing though, too, is if you've had the TPS recall and you're not sure how well they calibrated it, this will tell you. If you can log that file and you come in, you load it in here, this here is going to tell you how well they calibrated that value. If we have a look at their, if I can bring it up. Okay, if we bring up the shop manual, service manual, all right, and we go to TPS, no, all right, this is quite an interesting thing to do. So we go through and have a look at some of them, and you can see this one's not the one we're interested in. There's quite a lot of them. Now, one of the things is how it's mounted. It's mounted on just these two screws, and these screws are in slots. So I probably want to zoom this in. So it is mounted on these two slots and these screws. Now, I'm presuming the calibration is just by loosening the screws and rotating the whole unit. And that's not a good situation. It can easily get bumped out. It can easily move while you're trying to do a final torquing of those screws. And that's not a lot of torque to apply in a very, very tight area. It's not like you can get a torque wrench in there or something like, I mean, that's 3.5 Newton meters. That's not any tightness at all. And under tightening, that can move, or just under bumping this cable, trying to this hose, trying to put stuff together. Well, it is a cable, it's electrical. Now the next thing I thought was interesting, if we can get down there, oops, was this one. Okay, so this is the sensor. There's actually two resistive elements in there, so two potentiometers with two outputs. And I thought, oh, well, that's really, really interesting. One of them's a primary, I don't know which yet, and the other one's obviously a secondary one. And it's quite interesting because when you get down into here, so throttle position sensor, these are the wires, throttle position sensor, and there's another one here, but it doesn't put any labels on them. All right, so you'd have to figure out what's ground, what's power, and what are the two outputs. But here you can see that there are two signals. So this is in the diagnostic section. So there's expected to be two signals coming off that sensor. And if we have a look, ignore that, that's just they're faulty. So these are fault codes. These are fault codes. What we want is the diagnostic and the calibration one. Now we know that they're being told in their system to calibrate them to 11, between 11 and 21 for the signal 1 and 96 to 107 for signal 2. No, sorry, that's wrong. That is open. So that's 100% and that is 0%. So we know that they're being told to calibrate these to 11 to 21. I did see a video where someone was talking, a mechanic was talking about actively doing it, and he said they have been instructed by Yamaha to adjust it to 11. Now, this is for the 100% value. Now, perhaps strangely, um, yeah, these are the values that they see in their Yamaha system. Now, of course, we see the raw values of these in our ETV column in the file, and Woolich, of course, converts them to percentages incorrectly, but we've got a fix for that. Now, the interesting part here is, well, these are obviously just coming off those resistive elements. It should be easy to, well, if you have the tank out and the airbox off and you disconnect that, you should be able to sit there with a multimeter and measure the resistance across the whole thing and between ground and each of the two outputs. So signal 1 output, signal 2 output, and get yourself a baseline. So you'll be, if we can do it, and here we go, signal 2. So it's got a broader range of validity for both the 0 fully closed and 100% fully open. So I'm probably, well, I'm basically 9,000 kilometers off needing to take the airbox off again. So I'm not about to be doing this very soon, and it is one of the most annoying jobs to get that tank off and get the airbox out and whatnot. It's really fiddly, and I don't want to do it unless I have to, and I'm not going to do it just to prove a point. But yeah, it would be very interesting to do that, and I do believe if people are having significant issues and they are prepared to try and correct it, if they're finding that they're getting a value that is significantly out and it's causing them major issues in the tuning, then they can effectively sit there and play with that adjustment, run the logs, load it into a computer, see what it says here, the base value is, and aim for a base. So my new files, the base is actually 35, and I managed to get it down to be quite good. So I'm not too worried about that. This is my original pre-TPS sensor update. My post-TPS sensor update is now on 35. Yeah, so if you wanted to, and you checked your file and you go, oh, it's way out in one way or another, at least you have a potential way of doing it yourself, particularly given that on Reddit and that there are a lot of people complaining that the dealers are ignoring the issue. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to wind this up. I did think it was very interesting that there are two signals, and I do note that, or I did note when I decoded the file originally, that there were two signals, and now there's a good chance that the second signal is actually also this throttle position sensor. So at one point when I've got enough time, I will go back and have another look at what's in the raw file and one of the other raw columns and see if it aligns. But for now, yeah, I'm happy where it is, and yes, divine entanglement slash Woolich, and you can adjust your own files to account for the miscalculation between the Woolich and your actual bike. So good luck for everyone for that, and yeah, thanks for tuning in.